Hi, welcome to this Q&A for this week. We're going to talk about finances, and I know that's not a particularly sexy topic or something that people even like to talk about. But you know what? Finances are a part of every day, everything in our life, every exchange that we have. There's some form of money or investment. It can be emotional investment. It can be uh, our physical investment with cash. It can be products that we switch. My podcast this week is about financial awareness, and I wanted to bring it to the Q&A. And of course, I'm open to any other questions you have. Happy to go there if it's a topic I'm aware of. I'm so grateful that people are tuning in. I know that 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time can be tricky in a scheduling context. Um, and I'm grateful that whenever you can watch or and send me the comments and like and subscribe, I'm grateful. So I'll put it here, kind of like the podcast. We'll put it here, and when you're available, you go ahead. If you can have it in true time, I'm happy to do that. Hi, Enrique. So this week, the podcast is about financial awareness, and that came up from a multiple of reasons. It shows up in my coaching all the time because I have it's a level of respect for my client in that if they can't afford my services, I will either work with them on that and we will work intermittently and in order to create the abundance in order to afford me, or um, they can go purchase my bundles that are on the website vickybear.com, or attend Wisdom Wednesday. There are so many ways. But I decided when I started doing coaching, the certified coaching was about 16, 17 years ago, that it was important to me, in order to be in my integrity, to not create a difficulty in for my clients. I want to help. But as someone, I'll give you a little backstory here. I grew up one of 8 kids. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and there was only my dad's income. And then my father was on disability for the majority of my life. I don't remember him ever going to work until I was about 15, somewhere in that area. So he had a heart condition, and then he had a car fall on him. And these days, he probably would have been back to work in 3 months, but not in whatever that was, the 70s. So he was out of work for a long time, and thankfully Social Security covered and food stamps and things like that. But there was never a discussion in our home about finance. I didn't learn about any of that. I worked from the time I was 11 years old, and I'm grateful for that, because I've always said I was very proud of the fact that there's a good work ethic in all of us kids. The youngest one is now 51 or something, 52 or something like that. So anyway, then of course, like we do, like attracts like, right? I attracted a partner who was even worse at finances than I was. I am very grateful that over time in my life, I've had amazing uh, mentors and the women around me who I could look to. And this has led into my coaching because, truthfully, there were many times in my marriage, even throughout my coaching, even up until 8 years ago when my late husband passed, that finances were not great. That I was often, powering through to create the abundance to pay the mortgage. And when he passed, I made a commitment to myself that I would never live like that again because it's stressful. And I often work with people who, while they have a, 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 a pretty abundant income, that does not mean that they're living in a debt-free experience. And when I say debt-free, I mean, like, there's always going to be an electric bill, there's always going to be car insurance, there's always going to be a trip, hopefully. I'm not talking about living austerity. Listen, I like good coffee. We are never going without good coffee. But what I am talking about is honoring the energy of your money. And I made a commitment to myself, especially since it was quite scary to go to one income, especially a create your own. I know everybody thinks business owners who have their own business are rolling in the, seven figures, but that's not always true. And especially if you want to have a life, it's possible. It's very possible. And I mean to prove that it is possible in this lifetime. But what I have learned from my clients and what I've learned in my own experience is that life is a lot more joyful, playful, spiritually connected when you're not worrying about how to pay the light bill. And truthfully, that is not my experience now, but I still have those moments where, like just yesterday, I had to take my car in because it was doing that thing as you go down hills. And took it to the mechanic, and he's like, "Your rotors need to be done." I just had them done exactly a year ago. And I was like, crap, that is not in the expenditures this month. I still went to the place, so that tells me I have some belief systems to work through, of, oh man, how am I going to pay this? Well, paid it out of savings is how I paid it, because safety is important. And yet there's still that conditioning or that belief system that, oh, geez, how am I going to do this? I'm going to have to put it on credit and pay back later, which fine, that happens at times. It certainly does. But I had to like pull myself up short. And I always believe that we should speak kindly to ourselves when becoming aware of a belief that's in there that's just surfaced. Now, I was aware of this one, but I really had thought it had moved out a little bit more than it has. And I spoke kindly to myself, and I used what I call conscious circuitry work to rewire that message. And what I said was, yes, this is an expense of $350, and that's okay. I can pay, already did pay that $350. And then affirm to myself afterwards, this is also not going to create the traffic jam or the, experience of lack that it has in the past, because there have been many times in my life where that would have sent me spiraling. And I know a lot of people live in this. So I thought that's what this week's going to be about, along with the podcast. And thank you to Enrique for reminding me of that, because money is such a big part of our life and our experiences. Even if you're in a barter system, there's some kind of energy moving, right? So it's connected to not only your root chakra, but also your sacral chakra. So the one on the bottom and then the next one up. And those are tied to our physical experiences, as well as relationships. They do a lot. So when we're feeling that, it can literally lock up your chakra and it won't spin any longer. Well, it'll spin slower. Chakras rarely stop, thankfully. If they do, you have a pretty good health issue going on there. So in having this conversation with myself, I was reminding my chakras and to breathe up through my chakras, to be like, you're okay. You're okay. One of my favorite numbers, ladies, Carol, go right back into the feeling because of living so long in the past. Absolutely. Because we have neural pathways in our brains. We're so adorable that way. And when you understand about how energy moves, and you understand that all of this is not solely based in physical, You could be kind to yourself and say, yeah, that's how I was raised. And that was the majority of my relationship, if that was the case for you. And then remind yourself of, where am I right now? Like, I want to be present in where I am right now, and aware that if this was something that was a much higher expenditure, I would figure it out. I've always figured it out. I have always paid my bills. There was a point in our marriage where bankruptcy was on the table, and it was just so out of integrity to me that I just could not go there. And I was like, I will manifest this. And we can create that challenge as much as we can create the abundance. And it takes a lot of presence and fortitude to remind yourself that I can create this. I can create the flow that then brings in the amount that I need to pay. And I have seen this happen in so many ways. I had an experience in last couple weeks ago, where I was looking at my numbers, and I was doing what Carol calls financial forecasting. Check it out, loveyournumbers.com. And as I was going through it, I was feeling a little tight. And then I took a breath and I said, no, you're good. There's savings. There's other products you can do that I haven't rolled out yet. Go give. That's what I do when I get so tight. I will give to another person, usually of my time, because if you're tight financially, it doesn't make sense to give. You have to give to self first. So I did that. And then I had a client reach out to me and say, would it be okay if I paid the rest of the year now? Because she was doing a transfer of ownership in her business, and she wanted the write off. I am happy to be your write off. I will give you my tax ID number to be the write off. So, what can you do about that? Because there's so many experiences of this where we ebb and flow with money. And it's the same as you ebb and flow with energy. Sometimes you feel lit up about something, sometimes you don't. And yes, I chose this shirt purposefully today, um, because I believe in having the hope, and that connects to our soul, because the soul knows no bounds in all of this. It doesn't know what money is, it doesn't care what money is, it doesn't care that we have this system that's been created, but it always has hope. And I love it when the money comes in when we need it. And it's so important, Carol. Like, I'm going to phrase it as a question, but you don't have to answer if you don't want to. How important do you feel like it is to acknowledge when that money comes in, when that abundance shows up? It may show up that somebody, I had a client one time I was doing pro bono work for, because we were working on her creating a car, and somebody gifted her a car. And we had worked on her feeling of lack. I forgot about that. It's just coming back to me now. See, there's examples everywhere of this. I believe that when you acknowledge it, it grows. Just like if you're acknowledging your debt, you're likely to grow it. And if you're in lack, let me clarify that. And you're likely to diminish your debt if you pay attention to it. So I never liked the word budget. I don't know about you guys, but when I hear the word budget, I tighten up. And I don't know if it was said in my household, or if the fact that I was a bank teller for many years, learned a lot there too. The lessons didn't stay until I made them uh, important to me. Like, I made them about myself. And that's why accounting, it was difficult for me, Carol. When I was a bank teller, the credits and debits were on the other side. And then when I went into doing my own bookkeeping, I was like, my head hurts. But I love numbers. I love spreadsheets. So it helped. So as you're looking at your debt to others, I would love for you to call it a prosperity plan. I would like for you to refer to your expansion of your prosperity, of your abundance, of your value, your self value, and to call it a prosperity plan. Because budget to me says live in lack. It says, I think for most of our heads hear this. It's not what it means, but this is how our heads hear it, is to live in lack, to be very careful. You can never have a perk or anything like that. And I think by calling it a prosperity plan, it sends your energy in the direction of what you want. You do have to budget. You do have to be mindful about your expenses and about your spending mostly. And if you think of it as a prosperity plan, you will light up that root chakra. You will get the root and the sacral going, and then it powers up the solar plexus, which is quite literally power. Right. So I created this thing, and I do use it rudimentally with rudimentary. How do you say that? Rudimentary. Anyway, simply with uh, the clients that come in, that we have to address this, because I don't always know. Sometimes they've paid me, and then I'm saying to them, "Well, it seems like you're in some kind of lack or something there. What's going on?" And that leads us to having to do this. Um, so a question coming in, I have a set number, and then I'll go back to the prosperity plan and how to do it. I need to make in order to pay my bills. I always end up making that amount. I sometimes wonder if that set number in my head inhibits greater prosperity. It does, from an energetic perspective. So thanks for asking. It will, because there's the bar that you set. And thank you for setting that up so well to go with the prosperity plan, that the simple system I'm going to show you. So you set the energy to the set number you need to make. And I 10, I do 20, but I'll fall over for knowing what that number is. Because most of the time I find people avoid looking at that number. I know I did it many times. But the times that I have created the most prosperity in my life is when I did this. So it might be backwards. But so what I did was I go to Google calendars. I just learned this today, by the way. I used to print them off, just off of Google Images or something, or pay for a calendar. You can go to your Google Calendar, hit the gear icon, and print a blank page. So what I do is I will put the amount. This is blown up, but this is what I'm working on right now, of what I need to meet. And then I always say, or more. Okay. So you're going to put the amount. So E-ring 143, airing 143, however we say that. You're going to put that set amount still, because you've been meeting it, you've been there, you're rocking it, but you're going to put that at the top or more this month. Thank you. All right. Because what you're doing is you're asking your soul, your energy field, to meet up with spirit and the manifestation power that's in this universe to send that to you. Now, I'm going to edit it a little bit because I forgot 2 words of income. So 10,000 or more of income this month. Thank you. Or whatever your number is. Because what that does is it doesn't have you lying to yourself. I find a lot of the times when people teach about the law of attraction and manifestation and lining up with your value and creating your life, they forget about truth. Your system knows when it's lying to itself. You know when you're lying to yourself, right? We all do. I'm just going to eat 4 M&Ms. No, you're not, you liar. So by putting the amount that you need, now you do this by collecting all of those bills. Sit down. Don't forget your digital ones, your auto responders, auto pays. There are so many apps that are out there, Mint, Budget, something, I can't remember the name of it. There's so many apps. Your bank may even have one that will collect all your expenditures and put it into their little categories and send it to you. If you want to create more or see less debt, um, ooh, here comes a suggestion. You need a budget. There was something blocking the word. I couldn't see it. I had to kind of infer. So, you need a budget is popular. Thank you, Carol. So, by having an idea of what you owe, you will then create that number to put on the top. I know this is hard, and I know there may be tears. And I would suggest that when the tears come up, you let them come up because there's some kind of energy trap there that's trying to come out, and you may as well let it out. And maybe you go for a walk and you come back to it. There have been many times where someone showed up at my office for a session with a garbage bag full of receipts, and that's what we did because that was the kindest thing I could do with them that day and not talk about where are we going. We have to talk about where we are. And like I said, your system knows you're lying to it. So you may as well look at the truth and you do what you can. But there's it when you start looking at it and you start honoring your money, you start seeing it as something that is not like a reflection of who you are when you don't have it. You see it as a reflection of who you're capable of being because you're taking action, because you are listening to yourself, because you are creating a stability for yourself. And it gets to be fun. I was just talking with someone yesterday about this because she needed a couple tweaks. And a couple months ago, we had set some stuff in play. And she was telling me how she was having fun looking for uh, the products that she wasn't just paying for a label. She was still getting good product, but she wasn't just paying for a name. And I feel like people are becoming more and more aware of this. And the more we go through opening up, there's a lot of enlightenment that's happening this month. August is kind of a pressure cooker for it this year. And we may as well listen to this stuff. I know it can be difficult. I don't want you to judge yourself. You are wherever you are. And if you have a partner, you need to have this conversation because more often than not, it's the money that ends up breaking people up and or the lack of conversation there. So, what you're going to do on your calendar is you're going to write out when things are due, and that will also help you to come up with the number. You can absolutely do this on a spreadsheet, but there's power in holding a pen or a pencil or a marker in your hand. It makes a connection to the brain. That's why debit cards and credit cards are so dangerous because we don't make that conscious connection of handing out dollar bills. I actually just had one of my clients who should not be in a financial straits, who are, they have to go to the bank and, well, they have choice. Listen, they're all adults. I can suggest something, you don't have to do it. But I said, go to the bank, get the cash out. And when that cash is gone for like, you know, frivolous stuff, coffees and things like that. When it's gone, it's gone. You know how to make coffee at home? Make it at home. It's got less crap in it. So as you write out when it's due, I just put it on Fridays because I pay myself on Fridays. So as you have look, mortgage is the whole paycheck. um, so then as you have it there, you either highlight, you check, you put a star, you do something to be proud of yourself. Now down here, this is not the next paycheck because I pay myself every other week because paying your own taxes is a real thing. I like my roads. I keep telling myself, I like my roads. I like my roads. So down here, I know I have two larger expenses coming up in September, my car insurance. Oh, and the prepay on the propane, because what a deal that's going to be. So I have to account for that. And what this has done, when I first started doing this, I had to use two squares and we got paid every week for everything that I owed. And I had three kids at the time. So, but I know I didn't even know about the law of attraction then. I know that's what I was doing. So it's such a simple system and it works. You don't have to pay you don't have to invest. You could draw this out on something. But it works because I think that most of us were not taught. We were not instructed in any of this. And we had to learn as adults. And there's so much we had to learn as adults to begin with that you add the stress of the money on top of it. And then the fact that everything's so freaking expensive. Although I've been shifting that mindset for myself and saying, yep, prices have gone up and so does my income. Because you may as well work with what's going on. And when you recognize that this prosperity plan stuff is not about numbers, just numbers, it's about nurturing and creating a relationship with your salary, with your investments when you get there, your um, the people in your life, because there's pressure that can be put on if you have some that make more money and you go out to dinner and they expect you to be at that place. Like, I don't drink. And it took me a lot of courage to work out. This was decades ago. Now it's not a problem. But decades ago, to say to people, I'm not paying for your drinks. I don't drink. I should not have to contribute to your drinks. And if you're in that, speak up. Now it's a little bit easier, I think, with Venmo and everything. You can divide it up. But if someone's not willing to do that, don't go out with them anymore, because you want to create a relationship of respect. And this can become a ritual for yourself, and it can help you to see your progress, because sometimes that gets lost too. And most of all, it brings awareness, right? And then your chakras are going to clear out, and then doors will open. You will have opportunities because you started to honor and respect this life force energy that is in your life called finances. So does anybody have any questions, or just like a lecture? I want it to be interactive. Some of this came up also because I was having a conversation with my granddaughter who's 17 and is looking at colleges and all of that. And we were talking about what that means as far as being wise and saving for this year, because she is working. I think people don't talk about money because there's a judgment system in most of the world, not just in the United States. And that's the brainy part of it, that we don't talk about it because we tie too much of our self-value. And it has been taught to us to tie our self-value to money. But you know what? I know some of the kindest people, and we all, I'm sure, do, who are not living high in their income bracket and everything. And I feel like there's been a real judging of people, that if you're not making this amount, or if you don't live in this type of house, or if you haven't, created generational wealth for your kids yet. And it's like, but what if my wealth is about my time? What if my wealth is about my health? And I feel like there's a combination of not being taught by our parents. I know a lot of us that are 40, 50s, area, our parents just didn't talk to us. They didn't tell us stuff. So it becomes important for us to seek that out and to learn. But unfortunately, a lot of us got into a place of debt, and then felt shitty about ourselves. You say shitty on YouTube? Well, shitty about ourselves. And then that just rolls the ball even more. So that was one of the reasons I'm like, I am not a financial expert. I am not an advisor, but I do know how people are mean to themselves. And I do know that that usually comes from outside sources. And there's a certain level of ignorance, and I don't mean willful ignorance. I mean, you just don't know. And there's so much information that sometimes it's hard to figure out what's the best course of action. But it's definitely tied to self value. Some of the work that I do is, well, most of the work that I do is based in that self value and then the soul connection. I don't specifically talk about how this will bring more money into your life, but it does. And when you can do it both ways, you learn to value yourself, you will see an increase in abundance. Now, that's financial, that's opportunities, that's stuff gifted to you, that's relationships. You'll see an increase. And the other way, you start paying attention to where are you spending money because you're avoiding emotions. Where are you um, avoiding conversations about it with your partner, again because you're avoiding emotions? And how are you blocking your own joy in life? So maybe you do want to travel, maybe you want to invest in real estate, maybe you want to open a rescue for animals, but you're always in such dire straits that that would never happen. Well, when you start looking at the financial piece of it as a path to your spiritual alignment, and then to that joy in your life, and you look at the value of self, because of course, if you're doing this, you better value yourself even more and pat yourself on the back and do the high fives. They will meet in the middle, and you will feel great about yourself, because every one of us has the same potential in creating ease. It really is about creating an ease in your life too, because I'm not someone who wants a $10 million business. I don't. My time is very important to me. My stress level is very important to me. A couple million, great. There's knowing oneself. That's not tied to my value. That's tied to what I'll have to report on, my 1040. So the more that you allow the conversation to happen within your head, and if you are in a place right now where you are less than or just making ends meet, I sending you a humongo hug, because I know of that experience. And I also know that there are ways to be creative and you may be freaking exhausted right now and you don't have creativity in you. So you work on your self value first. And then when you have a little bit of energy, you work on the money part. Unless, of course, you are spending it on things like cigarettes, alcohol, stupid overpriced coffee, and things like that. Okay. If you're spending money on things to numb, that's not a self value issue. Well, it is to some extent, but you could look at that and then that would shift your finances. All of this needs to be done without judgment. It gets to be done with fun. You get to find ways. We have a thing, we don't really drink soda or anything or beverages in this house that require a can or a bottle. But when we're out walking, Mike and I pick up trash, and one of these days we're even going to remember the bag to pick up the trash because we look ridiculous juggling it all home because one of us can't remember to grab the dang bag on the way out the door. Maybe I'll assign it to the dog. Maybe she'll remember. But what we do is each time we see that, we yell 5 cents, right? Because we do turn them in. And we just took a great big bag the other day. And that was one way that when we were looking to buy this house and everything, and it's still a little tight, but we were like, I said to him, oh, we can't be in that space. We can't be in the lack or this is never going to happen space. We have to see abundance everywhere we go. So I mean, he has been known to stop the car, get out and go get it. It's mostly about the environment, but that 5 cents adds up, especially here in New York where you can do the water bottles. So um, your financial life, it's a journey. It's a experience of choices, consciousness, awareness. And I would love for you to be in the fun of it. If you can make it a game, again, if you're in that space where you're not feeling very playful in it, find one thing that can bring you joy. People are always giving away stuff. There's always stuff on the side of the road. That's abundance. If it's something you need, not if you're hoarding. Don't do that. That's a whole nother live. So you can go listen to the podcast. This week is about financial awareness, and I talk a little bit more about the process of prosperity planning and how to create a financial freedom that will allow your spirit to lighten up. Because as you do this and as you feel supported and grounded in your physical self, which is the south of the compass, your soul, your intuition will blow wide open. So there's another incentive, if you will, to do that. I so appreciate you stopping by on your precious time that you have in your life. And Carol, for your input. I really appreciate that. And thank you all. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, do. And I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye. You're welcome.